Welcome to Redbeard Radio. I'm Brian Keith, and today we are talking about how to change yourself. And this is so important because you are not the person that you want to be, and you're not the person that you could be. You could be better than you are. And there's all these different ways to change who you are. There's reading books, there's who you hang out with, there's who you role model, all this stuff. But we're going to talk to somebody today, someone who's made a lot of big changes in her life. And she's going to go light us the way on how to go change who we are. Jade, welcome back to the show.
Whoo, dog. It's great to be back.
I just realized, I don't know, is this like your third or your fourth time on the podcast? I don't actually even know at this point.
I think this is my fourth. I lost track.
Didn't know there was going to be a homer, did you?
Right? Math is hard.
Sometimes. I am so excited for today's episode because when I look at my life, I can see looking backwards, joining up the dots, looking backwards, that who I've chosen to be around and how I have developed myself. Looking backwards, it's quite obvious. Like, when I was hanging around the sword fighters, I made huge strides in a lot of the things related to sword fighting, like a lot of personal development, a lot of strength training, a lot of teamwork in the sports field. When I was hanging out around the mountain climbers a lot, I made a lot of gains in those areas, in risk management, in all the mountaineering skills, and really elevating myself as that kind of person. And then when I hang around Greg Jenkins, the Monkey Pod Grove, and all the fun people there, I expand myself as a business person. So I can see all these ways in which who I choose to be around has helped me change, but it's not always as intentional as I think it could be. And so I'd love to hear from you today, your framework, and what you're doing in your own life to go become the very best Jade Olivia that there could be by carefully choosing who you're hanging around.
Oh, I love the way that you frame that up by using the word intentional about it, because there are some things that you can change. You can change whom you are texting, calling, interacting with. And there are some things you can't change. You can't change who your family is. So there are really kind of two planes that we'll be talking about. The first is relative closeness to you. You can't choose your family. You can't choose where your house stands. You can't choose who your extended family is, whom you work with. Unless you own that company, you don't hire everybody. So there's certain physical circumstances that are out of your control. But the other thing to take into consideration is there are emotional investments that you can choose. And then after that, it's really a matter of actual physical choices. So those are kind of the two planes, and then how you decide on how it's all related.
How do I know what I'm doing good at versus what I'm not doing good at? Because if I already am pretty good at one of those planes, then I don't really want to spend a lot of time trying to change it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I had a way to assess, to diagnose, then that would really be helpful for me. So do you have a tool for that or a process?
Yeah. You know how when you're like strolling around social media or hearing how people are doing, if you feel any twinge of envy or jealousy, and not even in like a nasty way, and like, I wish I had that, or, I wish I would have done this, that's your cue to change. And it has to be intentional, like you said. But when you know that you are lacking something, one of the best ways to start acting is to change whom you are emotionally investing your time with in your inner circle of people.
I don't get the envy or jealousy as much as I experience admiration.
Mm-hmm.
As I think about just the question you asked, I think when I'm on social media, who am I experiencing admiration of?
Mm-hmm.
And, Jay, there's a really clear answer that immediately pops to mind, which is interesting. I admire the people who are demonstrating discipline. I can see in almost all cases the people who have all the kind of results out of their lives that I want out of my life. There's a direct path between the level of discipline they're willing to impose on themselves and the results they have.
Yeah.
All the way from the guys who are really ripped because they're eating very carefully and also working out the right ways, the right amount, to the people who have really great business results because they're so disciplined in their focus, to the people who have all the right social circles because they're really disciplined in how they cultivate their friends and cultivate their networks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, man, at least where I sit right now, it's all about discipline. So once I recognize that, I like discipline, that's what I admire about these people, what can I do from there?
Brian, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your example and to twist it to make it applicable to everyone is
Do it.
whose habits do you want to be more like? In your case, you admire disciplined people who are getting stuff done. Some other people admire people who spend more time with their family or are more emotionally open, right? These are all just habits, the way that people behave. And I promise you, and this is the point, you unconsciously reflect the habits and behaviors and speech patterns of those around you. If you have a friend from a different part of the world with an accent, you might accidentally pick that up a little bit. If you are around someone who is negative, you will notice yourself accidentally criticizing other people. Afterwards, you'll think to yourself, like, why did I just do that? Why did I have that thought? It's because habits are contagious.
Story time.
Yeah.
Did you know that I used to live over in Wales in the UK?
Mm-hmm.
So lived there for a school year, back in college, back in uni. And I didn't hang around Americans at all because why would you go abroad to be around Americans? That's lame. And springtime, my girlfriend came over for a week and then she went back home. And my mates in Wales said that my accent completely changed when she showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And when she left after a week, it completely changed back. Because from fall up through spring when she visited, my accent had changed so much because of the people I was hanging around. The whole way I viewed the world through language had just changed.
And you weren't trying to do that, I'm sure. It was just an absorbed thing.
I was around some Americans January of that year. So I'd been in country for 3 or 4 months who thought I was a local. And I thought, wow, these poor Americans, they can't even tell that I have an American accent. Of course, the reality is that my accent had changed enough on a very temporary basis because then my folks came to visit after the end of the school year, changed right back to being my normal. My rate of speech changed, how fast I walk changed, everything changed.
Right. And did you wake up and say that you're going to do that on purpose?
No, it's just environment.
Exactly. It's environment. That's a really great way to put it too. So the next thing that's really important to acknowledge though is that, and this is why I kind of set the stage with the 2 different planes earlier, is because there are some things that you physically can't change. So I'm sure everyone listening, whether we want to admit it or not, let's say, for example, you have an intimate family member that you don't want to be like, to put it nicely. It could be a parent, could be a sibling, could be a cousin, but someone in your life who you love dearly and would give your life for easily, but that doesn't mean you want to behave like that person. And so it's really important to distinguish the love and care you have for someone is completely unrelated to the emotional barriers that you have and the actual time investment you have with them. And it's okay to take space away from people that you don't want to pick up habits from.
You remind me of thinking not about others, but about myself. And I can look in my own life history and think about there's times in my life where I've made curious decisions, curious looking back. And I can feel great compassion and great love for that person that I was while still having no desire to make a similar decision now.
Oh, absolutely. For some people, that's a really hard decision to make. But once you're conscious and aware of it, it does become easier. And the best part is once you actually choose to spend time with people with habits you want to rub off on you, you will literally feel, see, experience a difference. A really great example of this is like, think about young kids, like, punk teenagers, right? They're stubborn. They think they know everything. They're emotional. They're young adults, right? Well, let's say you have a child that is hanging out with kids that are binge drinking and doing drugs and everything. I think it says a lot to like not tell your child like, oh, those are bad kids. Those are kids. They're probably really good people, but they have bad habits. And so the same is for adults, the same as in business. It's all habits related. I'm 35 years old and there are friends that I care about deeply, but like I only hang out with them when I'm like at bars, drunk in the middle of the night, like not with my kids. And so I choose to spend less time with those kinds of people, even though I care about them a great deal and I care about their future and I hope that they do well. But I know that if I choose to text them often and be like, hey, what's up? How's it going? Oh, yeah, let's hang out. Then I'm going to end up drinking more and derail things that are more important to me in the long term.
It's an energy level thing.
Yeah.
I'm a similar age to you, and we're at this interesting age where we have this arc of friends from our school years and from our 20s, and we can see that some of those friendships help us get to the energy state we want to be in, that vibration level, and some don't. And I look at it as what do I owe my children, which I don't have yet? What do I owe my children? What do I owe my fiance? What do I owe myself at 100 years old? Looking back from 100 years old, what kinds of people do I wish I would have spent time around? And not just in person, right? But also what kind of podcasts? What kind of social media interactions? What kind of really letting vibrations into my body in any way? My buddy Michael Gimmerin has this phrase, info slob, for people who take in information indiscriminately as if they were eating McDonald's every day. An info slob. Doesn't it sound horrible? And there's definitely times where I'm an info slob, or more of an info slob than I want to be. I say that because I'm letting the vibration of people into my life. And I can think of examples as early as this morning on Twitter, where I'm like, okay, is that the energy I'm going for? And then I see some people who are just amazing, at least from the outside. They are completely serious about their information environment. I admire them. Again, it's admiring discipline is my experience.
Yeah.
Where I say, wow, like Ed Lattimore, that guy on Twitter, Ed is just, he's doing his own thing. He's elevating people. He doesn't get distracted. If you don't follow him, Ed Lattimore on Twitter, amazing guy, because he's so focused on bringing up the energy of everyone around him.
I love everything about that because it's absolutely energy, it's vibrations, it's all of the above. And the beautiful thing about all of this is that, I mean, how many people read self-help books and think, oh, this is so hard, everything is so hard. And it is, but when you're around other people with better habits than you, it's 1,000 times easier than if you stay in the same environment that was not encouraging you to do better, to be better, to care. So it literally makes it easier. And that is amazing.
Have you read Willpower Doesn't Work by Ben Hardy?
No, but that sounds amazing.
It is. I just finished it. You said self-help books, and I thought, well, what's the most recent self-help book I read? And I realized, oh, right, I just finished it. Ben Hardy's thesis is that willpower is nearly irrelevant, that environment is almost everything. And you have a lot of choice in the environment you create, all the way from what food is in your fridge to who you hang around to everything. So last night, we're having a pretty crazy heat wave where I am right now. We don't have AC mostly. So I thought, okay, well, it's how can I prepare on a Sunday night for work on Monday? Well, what did I do, Jade? I cleaned my office. I wasn't very clear-headed, but I thought, okay, I'm going to go just clean my office. I'm going to vacuum the floor twice in some places, just get everything clean, because that environment is going to go and elevate me. And what's on my desk? A pile of note cards, a pen, a single good idea that I wrote down a couple weeks ago, and then one love note from my fiance. That's what's on my desk. So when I walk in here, I'm telling myself a story. And that story is around who I am. Now, we're talking about how do you change your reality by who you hang around. Well, part of who you hang around is yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else did I do this morning? I'm not recording any video today, but I went and shaved really carefully. Because I'm telling myself, like, hey, I'm starting off my week. I'm the kind of person. So I have a clean office. You will not know that my floor is really well cleaned, right? But I know it. So the version of me I choose to be around right now ate good food for breakfast, didn't eat crap, has a cleanly vacuumed floor, and is very well groomed. So that's this version. And that's part of the point of Ben Hardy's book, Willpower Doesn't Work, is you can do this for everything in your environment, including who you hang around, and including even the family members, the loved ones in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Which parts of them do you most enjoy being around?
I love that. So, Brian, would you consider me to be a positive, optimistic person?
In all my experiences of you so far, I feel like a shoe's about to drop here. Nothing like live radio, folks.
Right? Would you believe me if I told you that not a single person in my immediate family and like the people that I grew up with, nor my significant other, none of these people would ever accidentally say the words, "You're doing great."
Would never accidentally, as in they're not supportive in that way?
That's just not, they're not optimistic, peppy people.
Hmm.
It's just not like a trait in my immediate family. They're like very cautious, determined women that are, I wouldn't call them pessimistic, but they don't walk around complimenting people like I do.
I'm a pretty big believer in diversity of thought.
Yeah.
What you're describing to me feels like, yeah, that there's a huge case for some percentage of us to be outlandishly optimistic.
Hmm.
And then there's some case for some of us to be like, what if this doesn't work? And I happen to be part of the former. So I'm like, woo, go team optimism. But I recognize that if I only was ever around people and only ever took in information about how whatever your current idea is, Jade, it's going to work. It's going to work great. You should bet. You should take out a loan to bet on that idea. You're right. Your Bitcoin price being at 100,000 right now, you're right. Take out a loan, mortgage your house. Nothing can go wrong. That's just as bad as people are like, that's not going to work because of these 10 reasons. You're pretty dumb for even thinking that might work,
Hmm.
which these are both disastrous. So we need to have the balance and understand where we're at in the network of our families and our friends and our business partners, where we're at in the network so we can understand I'm on this side of things and my bias is this. Like I tend to have a bias of this will probably work.
Hmm.
And as do you, which certainly helps our ventures go well, but it also has some huge blind spots. Have you ever started a project, launched it, and then discovered afterwards that was not going to work? The way I did that had a 0% chance of working, but I was sufficiently optimistic that I launched it anyways, only to discover, whoops.
That's absolutely happened to me before too. So, what happened is I was around too many people who didn't have enough optimism. And so not only do I have a good amount of people in my life now that I choose to emotionally invest in that are also like not necessarily cheerful, but like emotionally supportive and like verbally positive to me. That's an important trait of people that I care about. But furthermore, I deliberately picked in my professional space, I deliberately picked a handful of people that I severely admire, and you're one of them. And I regularly reach out to you and these other people. And my positive side, it's something that's important to me that I share with people close to me, but also I picked people that were smarter than me, and I hope to compliment them in a different way because I don't want peppy cheerleader sycophants around me all the time either. So
Yeah,
I picked all those really smart people and I provide that energy to them. And in turn, they make me smarter. You make me smarter.
that is so sweet. Balance in building your network.
Yeah.
So let's get tactical, Jade. For someone listening to this who's thinking, maybe I could be more careful about choosing who I hang around or more intentional and really design the person I want to be a decade, 50 years from now. What's one specific thing a listener can do to go and update the energy they're letting into their lives?
Here's a tip that really worked for me. As you alluded to before, I have, within the last year and a half, gone through some significant changes and transformations in my life, including a huge pivot of my energy and whom I'm spending time with, which is obviously the topic of today. But one thing that really helped me keep my eye on the prize, which is bettering myself, was to literally put these people at eyes height, like within my line of vision. And so on my refrigerator, on my freezer, I have a whiteboard, and as you know, I'm not tall, so the whiteboard is about 5 feet off the ground, so my eyes are below that, and I literally the top is my grocery list that always changes, but the bottom is always a list of no less than 3 or 4 people at a time, and I write I am grateful for. And literally, your name has been on my whiteboard for over a year. And
Whoa.
every day I walk by and it says, I am grateful for Brian Keith, Greg Jenkins, Ellen Martin, Rebecca Clayton, Brian Byers, like these people that I know that I want to be like. I write your names and I walk by it every day. And if I'm out like drinking and partying, I'm not trying to be like those people. So I see it every day.
I love how you've curated your environment, both your physical environment, your mental environment, your social environment. Back when I was in my school days, like pre-college and earlier in college, I was not a particularly confident person. I know that's shocking to hear.
Did you say confident or competent?
Confident. I was not very confident
Hmm.
compared to, now. And one of the things I did is I wrote a bunch of my favorite quotes on note cards and I
Hmm.
taped them all over my house. And I made collages, Jade. I didn't call them that. I made collages. One was, and in some cases it was collages of pictures of me. And I'm trying to recall, this one was something like, "It is the young man of true conception who says, I am everything, and then goes to prove it." So wrote Edward Bach.
Mm.
And I had that quote, the text, and then I had 4 pictures of me around there adventuring and doing various crazy things to go and program myself into perceiving that to be my normal thing.
Wow.
And I had a quote up next to the ceiling on the top of this wall. And I walked into the kitchen that said, "To truly enjoy the flavor of life, take big bites. Moderation is for monks," from Robert Heinlein. And so I just had little notes all over my house to go and really condition, persuade, program, whatever your choice of words, about what is my reality. And when you program yourself that you're the kind of person who's grateful, like what you've done with your fridge thing, changes your whole world. I don't know how many times a day I tell myself in my head and out loud to my fiance, I talk about how blessed I feel.
Mm.
Now, I am blessed. It happens that it's true. It's palpably true. But I'm also choosing to interpret every piece of information as, wow, I am so blessed. I had a significant health issue recently, and I just chose to see that as, wow, I am so lucky this happened right now. Wow. Oh my goodness.
Hmm.
If this had happened a while from now, that could have been a problem. If this had happened when I was out sailing, that could have been a big problem. I'm so blessed. I had my sailboat blow up on me a couple weeks ago. I didn't tell you the story.
No.
Hi, everyone. You get to hear a sailing horror story. If you're ever sailing and you look forward and you see a piece of metal hanging off your forestay because your forestay is no longer attached to your boat, that's bad. That means the piece of wire that's connecting your mast, the thing that the sail hangs off of, to the front of the boat is no longer attached. And the mast is only not falling into the water or falling back and crushing your heads because your foresail's up, your jib's up. And I saw that and I thought, oh my God. Like at first, so I see this piece of metal dangling. I'm trying to process, why is there a piece of metal just dangling in midair? And Carrie says, "Is everything okay?" And I say, yeah. And then I look and I realize, oh, bollocks. This is what, so I fill my pockets with all my spare gear. I turn the motor on so she can be on the tiller trying to avoid us hitting other boats or the mud flats. And I dash forward and it takes me way too long to try to fix this thing. There's a point to the story. The point of the story is I'm so blessed because that could have happened instead of like a couple hundred yards from a port. That could have happened in the middle of the ocean on a 4-day sailing trip, 10 miles from shore,
Oof,
right?
scary.
So you get to choose. Are you blessed or are you cursed? And almost everything you experience, you get to identify as one of those things. And whatever story you tell yourself, your body will believe you. It was like my body believes I was blessed. Was it stressful? Absolutely. Nerve-wracking. But I still believe that I'm blessed that it happened then and there and in that place.
Well, like you're feeling that is a habit that you have. And, I'm sure there's some people listening who are like, oh, I wish I could do that. Or maybe they just blatantly identify as not being like that. Well, if you hang around people who view things that way, I promise you it will rub off on you. It doesn't have to be all of your work to change everything all the time. It has to be your work to change who you be around, and it's going to make the rest of the work significantly easier.
I have a glass of water on my desk. I did not have to purify this water myself. I didn't have to go build a well house. It just sort of showed up. And that puts me in the top half or the top third of people in the world who have completely reliable water easily available.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're ever not feeling blessed, just go think about, okay, well, what do you have? Like, am I about to be eaten by a lion or am I in a war zone where, it's really violently unstable? No. Okay, I'm suddenly in the top half of the world or whatever it is. I'm so blessed. And if you can find people who have that vision, like you're saying, Jade, if you hang around me long enough, at some point, you'll see me give thanks for something completely commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wow, I really like the fact that I can be out of the sun right now. That's great. or whatever it is. Like, wow, I can do this or I can do that. Or I'm so blessed to have food. Like, I got to eat food today, good food. That's amazing. That was not always the case, even a few generations ago, that you just could have good food easily available.
Yeah, being grateful for your problems is an amazing quality to have. And again, it's a habit and it's very easy. I will tell you that I have an intimate family member that just constantly criticizes people. And I used to not notice it so obviously. And then after I spent time with this person, I would do it too. And it took a while,
Ooh.
like a couple weeks after it kind of faded away, I was like, oh, I noticed it again and again and again. And now that it's become obvious to me and I spend more time with people who don't criticize others, it's all I hear now and it irks me. But this is my family member whom I love deeply. And I was able to put an emotional wall between that behavior and myself. So now I feel confident that I can safely spend time with this person without that rubbing off on me because I'm aware of it. And it took literally my entire life to realize that and get to this place, but I'm feeling pretty darn good about it.
That's an incredible story. And here's the sequel or the punchline to that is that we're all doing that in some way to ourselves we don't notice. Because when we look back 10 years from now, all of us will be able to look at some behaviors, some habits we're engaged in right now and say, oh, wow, yeah, that wasn't serving me. No, that was not who I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
But we're doing it right now and we think it's fine. And so it's relatively easy when it's someone else to go, wow, that person's a downer or that person's ungrateful or whatever. But to look at ourselves and say, okay, what am I doing right now? Is it my posture? Is it how I'm eating? Is it how I'm talking to other people? Is it how I'm talking about other people in my head? What is it where I could raise my energy level and become more who I want to be?
Absolutely.
Jade, I love all your thoughts so much. If people love how you think and they want to be around someone who is outlandishly optimistic like Jade Olivia, where can they get in touch with you?
If you are a business owner, there are two brands I highly encourage that you follow. One is jadeolivia.co. That's jadeolivia.co. That is a brand where entrepreneurs and digital marketing providers bond and communicate and network and find very awesome solutions to real small business problems. And it's just a great place to be. And then also, I have a membership for entrepreneurs who could use a little shake of the You're Doing Great spirit. It's literally called You're Doing Great, and the website is youredoinggreat.today. Brian is a member.
I'm a pretty optimistic person and I still enjoy sometimes hopping on Facebook and I just see these things pop up of people talking about what's going well.
Mm-hmm.
And just to have that, to the extent that any of us are exposed to overall news of the world, there's all negativity leads, right? But in You're Doing Great in that group, positivity leads.
Mm-hmm.
What an idea. Where we can all say, hey, what's going really good for you? What are you rocking? What are you excited about?
Yeah.
And having that place for positivity. And of course, it costs a little bit of money. So where your wallet goes, your attention follows, as I always say. And it just is this beautiful. Have I never said that to you before?
No.
It's so true. Where your wallet goes, your attention follows.
Huh. I love that.
If you want to pay attention to anything, spend money on it. And suddenly you'll be like, oh, I'm spending money on this thing. And you'll start, because then here's the thing. You're telling yourself, I'm the kind of person who spends money on that.
Mm.
If you've never eaten grass-fed ground beef or grass-fed steak, go buy some. Go eat some. You'll enjoy it. It's way better for you than commercially grown, the CAFO stuff. But you'll also be telling yourself, I'm the kind of person who cares about my health enough to spend more money on this. And I guarantee you, you start eating grass-fed meat, you'll start drinking less soda and less other crap. Because you can't both be a person who buys grass-fed steak and also drinks Coke. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you'll be challenging your own identity. And whether you're a vegan or whatever, if you're vegan, start eating healthier vegan food, right? More local, more organic, just eat more real food. And you'll tell yourself, oh, I'm the kind of person who eats real food. And your ice cream consumption, and sadly, Jade, your alcohol consumption will plummet because you can't do both. And when you join You're Doing Great for some very small amount of money per month, it's just more than zero. You'll be like, oh, I'm the kind of person who spends money being around optimistic people to raise my energy level. You'll find that whatever negativity you have in your vibe, it sort of withers away because you're part of You're Doing Great.
Absolutely. And what's really beautiful about that is that it's not like a pandering You're Doing Great. It's a whole mantra. It's a spirit of like reminding us, because entrepreneurs, it's an emotional up and down. I tell you, it's hard and it's beautiful. And as adults that are often isolated as business owners, we don't get pats on the back very often. And you'd be surprised. I mean, have you ever told us like a stranger, like, wow, I love your shirt? Just something simple like that.
I actually do. I do in some contexts. And I just tell people, I love this, or I love that, or I love how you did this, or whatever. And it's amazing how it can brighten people up.
It's incredible.
My mom has a story about walking in New York once, and she just thanked some guy or something who wasn't expecting to be, maybe it was on the subway, I don't know. And those New Yorkers, they're so insular. That's how they have to deal with being in the big city, is like being really turned into themselves. And this other person was surprised that she talked to them. But then after they got over their shock, someone's talking to me, they had this huge smile because they were seen.
Oh,
And that's what we all want, is we want to be seen.
I see you. Even though this is a radio show, I'm looking at you, boo. I see you. You're doing great.
You're doing great. What's the website for that, Jade?
Youredoinggreat.today.
Fantastic. We'll wrap it up there. Jade, thank you so much for being on the show. Folks, if you've liked Jade's work, you got youredoinggreat.today, you got jadeolivia.co. If you want to hear more of Jade's outlandish optimism, go to redbeard.am and search for the word Jade, and you'll find her other episodes on all kinds of wonderful things. Jade, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a blast.